Tell me more about this. What did your mother think? Have you ever knocked over salt before? And the psychiatrist works on it, goes through a psychoanalysis, tries to understand in terms of the defense mechanisms and the competition among these subconscious forces, and give the person insight. The idea is that the person is going to get insight. But once you understand that it's the subconscious, that there are these forces between, there's this conflict between society and morality, the superego on one hand, and the id, the biological urges, on the other hand, and what happened to you in childhood that's explaining why you are the way you are today. Once you get this insight, we'll be able to convert your neurosis, that's your problems, into normal unhappiness. That's the idea of the therapy. The person may talk about their dreams, and Freud wrote a book about dream analysis, symbols, slips of the tongue, accidents, things like that. These are all important things for the analyst to study to try to get insight into what's going on in the workings of a person's subconscious mind. And the theory has to do with all of this stuff, all this terminology over here to work in. So this is the idea of the therapy. Now it might be that the theory is a lot of nonsense and the therapy could actually be beneficial, or vice versa. The theory might have something to do with it and the therapy be harmful. We'll consider these various things in a bit. How many of you think that there's some truth behind this theory and it has valuable insights for you to understand yourself and others? Not too many people. How many think it's a whole lot of BS? Yeah, a couple of people are willing to say that. Yeah. What do most psychologists think about this? Well, most of them, if you did it, and surveys have been done, most psychologists think it's a lot of nonsense. They're embarrassed about it. They say Freud created a lot of psychobabble. But this psychobabble, as intro psych students, you're going to have to learn it because it's part of our language now. So this psychobabble has become part of our language, part of our culture. You're going to need to learn this terminology and how to apply it so that you can understand it when you take your English course. Why English? Because in English they don't know that in psychology we think it's a lot of nonsense. They still use it to analyze plays. So what can you use Freudian stuff? You can analyze plays. You can analyze anything. Your friends, your neighbors, political opponents. Sigmund Freud was an Austrian at the time of World War I. United States and Austria were at war. Woodrow Wilson was president of the United States. Freud did a psychoanalysis of Woodrow Wilson, who he had never met in person, but he decided that Woodrow Wilson was a latent homosexual. Well, not that it would be bad to be a homosexual, but a latent homosexual, that's one who doesn't even know they're homosexual. How did he know didn't know he was homosexual? Well, I don't know how he knew that, but he... You can analyze anything. You can analyze Hamlet. Remember, I tried to get you with to be or not to be. That's famous speech from the play Hamlet. You can ask questions like this. The English teacher is going to ask you questions like this. Use Freud's theory to analyze Hamlet's scene where he has a conversation with his mother. Why is he upset with his mother? Why is Hamlet conflicted? Why can't he just go ahead and do something? Why is he trying to decide what to do? Well, what happened in the story of Hamlet? Somebody killed his father and married his mother, right? Why is Hamlet conflicted? Because that's what he wanted to do, right? His uncle killed his father and married his mother, and Hamlet wanted to do it himself, just as uncle got there first. At one point he's choking his mother in a scene there. He's really mad she got married so fast after his father was dead. She remarried. So you can analyze Hamlet. You can insult people. Instead of brownie theory, You can tell people, I think you have an unresolved Oedipal complex. You can sound like you're caring. You know, having listened to you and talked to you for a while, I think you have an unresolved, you should do something about your unresolved. What are you really saying to a person when you say they have an unresolved Oedipal complex? What are you calling them? Common language and MF, right? You MF. But if you say it like that, you know, there are a lot of people, like at the end of the Super Bowl, people start punching you, you know, people start hurting you. There was a riot. For those of you who didn't watch the game, it was like broke out into a fight. It was, some people were frustrated by throwing an interception, making a bad decision. That's what the article and the things about decision making. He was going to use the story of that bad decision. He didn't use, anyway, whenever you give an interview to a reporter, it's always like a strange relationship between what you said and what appears in the paper there. But you know, I gave him a good story he could have used about the decision of going to throw the ball. You know, you have the best running backs around. You got 1 yard to go. Guy just been gaining yards, and you know the other team couldn't really stop him for no gain. 1 yard away, give him the ball. You have a timeout. You can call timeout after that. So, you know, making a decision like you can insult people. You can say, you have an unresolved Oedipal complex. That's why you decided to throw a pass and have it intercepted. He wanted to punish himself. That's why he threw the interception. Unresolved Oedipal complex. But if you call him an MF, he might come after you, that quarterback, throwing that in, or the coach who called the play. They asked the coach, why'd you make that decision? He rationalized. He said, well, we were thinking we were going to run the ball on third down, you know. Rationalize. Let's try to rationalize. You can insult people. What else can you say? You can say, I think you fixated at the anal stage of development. What are you telling them? They're full of it, right? So it's like a fancy way to insult people, so that's a use of it. But you can also understand the insults. And understand, you know, a lot of television dramas are based on this. Is real psychology based on this? Not much anymore. There used to be 2,000 in the United States psychoanalysts. Or actually in the world, 2,000 psychoanalysts. But there's more than 2,000 movies and plays about psychoanalysts, including the recent example, The Sopranos. Of course, she was a psychiatrist, prescribed drugs, but also really was interested in this relationship Tony Soprano with his mother, first season. A lot of soap opera stories and so on. But what's wrong with the theory? What is wrong with Freud's theory as a theory? Let's think about it. How would you test it? If it means something, then you understand how to test it. How would you test this theory? So let's just think about it. Can you observe somebody else's mind? Can you observe your own subconscious mind? Can anybody observe your subconscious mind? No. Is it a contradiction to say that someday they will invent a device for measuring your subconscious mind? Well, it's a contradiction to say you can observe somebody else's mind, because by definition the mind is private. It's what the mind itself is observing. Well, you can't observe your but I'm going to tell you what's in there. There's a stalactite in your subconscious mind. Oh God, it's a stalactite in my subconscious mind. Yes, it's causing you trouble. How is that different from their brownies have fringes, or they don't, or they're frangulated or not? What's the difference between the subconscious and the brownies? We've got the id and the superego. They're subconscious. They're battling with each other, trying to make you do. If one thing does one thing does another. With the one that won out is what happened. How do we explain? How would you test the theory that every male is over 6 feet tall? Is it true?
No.
No. How would you check it? You understand how to check it. Don't make noise right now. People need to listen to this. Still have a couple minutes. That clock's fast. Still got a couple minutes. 3 minutes fast. How would you test it? You imagine how to test it. You know how it's true. How about a statement like, all boys or all males have an Oedipal complex? How would you test it? Well, let's say there's a male loves his mother in an acceptable way. What would you say? Sublimation. There's a male hates his mother. Does that disprove it? No, it's reaction formation. There's a male that, is indifferent to his mother. Oh, identification. There's a male, but he loves Jodie Foster. Oh, identification. Right? No matter, can you imagine anybody that doesn't have an Oedipal complex? How would you disprove it? If you cannot imagine disproving it, the person is not saying anything. It's not even wrong. But the brownies, I believe in them. If they didn't exist, it's the same as if they do exist. How would you know they exist? How would you know if somebody has or doesn't have? If you can't test it, in principle, it's meaningless. Now, there was another criterion that was on there. Is it deductive? Yes, you can deduce it. You want to explain something? You can construct a deductive argument. Johnny hates his mother. Okay, Johnny has an Oedipal complex. All boys have an Oedipal complex. What is the Oedipal complex? Definition. That's the subconscious desire to kill his father and marry his mother. He wants to have sex with his mother. But reaction formation, that's why he hates her. So he's constructed the opposite. So you can deduce it. Can you predict it? If I told you, Johnny has an Oedipal complex, can you predict if he's going to love his mother or hate her? You cannot predict in advance. You have to wait till it happens, then you have to construct the explanation. Called psychoanalysis. You construct the explanation after you know what's happened. After the person has a dream, you can't predict the dream the person's going to have, but after they have the dream, you construct the analysis. Trains going into tunnels, airplanes flying through the sky, airplanes crashing and blowing up in other countries. Somebody dream about that lately? Why? Because it's been happening on the news. But what would the Freudians say? Castration anxiety, Oedipal complex. Plane is a phallic symbol, crashing plane, castration, and all right, that's it for today.